given the nature of what we're discussing. But this is going to sound flippant. And I apologize beforehand because I understand that I'm going to sound terribly flippant, terribly casual, terribly unconcerned, emotionless, and callous in this particular video. And I apologize, and it's not intended. I miscarried this morning. I found out that it was a miscarriage for certain at the doctor's office at about noon. Let me tell you all about that. Let me start at the beginning, because these things without context can seem really out of whack. Like, I was way too relaxed about this, and that would seem bad if you didn't have a little bit of context, and so I'm going to give that to you. I've been pregnant 6 times, and I have 3 children. I have a 50% success rate, which ain't great. It ain't great, but, you know, what are you going to do? It is what it is. My good pregnancies, where I successfully have a child, you know, they feel different than my failed pregnancies. All of my failed pregnancies tend to have similar traits, and it's happened enough times, you know, 3 successful pregnancies, 3 failed pregnancies, you start to recognize a bit of a pattern. I can also tell, I'm certain, like, nobody ever believes me, but I can always tell what the gender of my baby is. This one, I'm pretty sure it was a girl, but it was really difficult because it was too early to really tell. If I start coughing uncontrollably in a couple weeks, then I'm going to know that I was wrong and it was a boy. But I really think it was a girl. Yeah, I can sort of tell how the pregnancy is going just by the way I feel. With all my pregnancies, I get grumpy. I get super grumpy when I'm pregnant. But with my failed pregnancies, I've noticed I seem to have more negative mood swings instead of, you know, usually it's an up-down sort of thing for me. Positive mood swing, negative mood swing. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm so angry. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm crying and I can't stop. It's really annoying to be around me when I'm pregnant because of this. And I'm also pretty rational when I'm pregnant because everything is like filtered through this heavy emotional lens. But I've noticed that in my pregnancies that have failed, all of them, there are considerably fewer happy mood swings. In fact, in this particular pregnancy, I don't know if I had any happy mood swings. A lot of dark emotions, a lot of, you know, sudden surges in anger, sudden surges in fear, sudden surges in sadness, you know, just, you know, and everything is emotional. When I'm pregnant, everything is emotional. I hate it because normally I'm a very reserved kind of person. Normally I'm not feeling and emoting so much. Like for a woman, I'm not particularly emotive. When I'm pregnant, I'm not myself, and I hate it. And I think that that's also a little bit amplified when I'm pregnant with a failing pregnancy, because I think I'm just more moody when that happens. I don't feel pregnant, which sounds weird, but a lot of people who've had miscarriages or had situations like this kind of know what I'm talking about. A lot of obstetricians might recognize this sort of saying. I don't feel pregnant when I have a failing pregnancy. The most notable of these was, of course, the pregnancy before this one, where I carried the baby for 17 weeks. And for 17 weeks, or actually more, for 15 weeks, because 15 is when we found out that the pregnancy was absolutely doomed. For the first 15 weeks, I kept on saying, I'm not having any nausea. I haven't puked yet. I guess that's a good thing, but it just feels really weird. And there were a lot of moments throughout that pregnancy where it's like, this just feels strange. And it was really unsettling to me because I wanted the pregnancy to just be over with. It was like something's just not quite lining up for me, and I really just, I want my baby, and I want this to be over. I want this to be done. Now, I always want my pregnancies to be done. Like, you know, you get me as big as a cow when I'm waddling everywhere I go, and it's like, please just get this thing out of me. I am so tired. I am the size of a house. I'm I'm having trouble moving around the way I used to. I just want to get a good workout in. I just want to break a sweat, and not because I'm sitting around being fat and hot and pregnant, but because I'm actually working out and moving around. I am tired of loaning my body out to this little tiny person. Give it back to me. It's mine. And that's me when I'm pregnant, but this was different. It was like, I don't like this one. I just want it to be, I want to get my baby and I want to be done. And, it was one of those things. It was like, I'll feel better about all of this when it's over and I have a baby and everything's safe and sound. And then, of course, 15 weeks in, we find out that that's not going to happen. So this pregnancy starts up and I wasn't having any nausea, and everybody kept on saying, well, don't worry about that. It's really early in the pregnancy. You usually get your nausea a little bit later on, so maybe it's just going to happen a little bit later. And then I would read anything on pregnancy symptoms, congratulations, you're 7 weeks. You're probably puking your guts out, aren't you? It's like, gee, I wish. I haven't felt remotely nauseous this whole time. The food cravings went away really quickly. Like, they went away about the time I found out I was pregnant. I stopped having food cravings, and it was, I think, maybe a few days before, because I hadn't had a food craving for like a day or two, and I kept waiting for them to spike back up again, and they didn't. And that was what it was. Okay. And then just, all of the pregnancy symptoms that they always tell you you're going to get, they weren't happening. And I kept waiting for something to happen. Like with most of my pregnancies, my successful pregnancies, I know I'm pregnant before I know I'm pregnant. I start acting pregnant before I discover that I'm pregnant. And so I have all these little stories I could tell you guys about things that I did slightly differently because of a baby. And it was like, okay, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Well, you could be pregnant. It's like, and it wasn't even, well, you could be pregnant. It's like, it's for the baby. I would do things for the baby, and then I'd stop and think to myself, well, what baby? You're not pregnant, are you? Like, what baby? Why am I doing this? Why am I taking my vitamins today? Like, I don't really need to take vitamins, but okay, I'm taking vitamins today, I guess. Why am I not eating this cheese? You're not supposed to eat certain cheeses when you're pregnant. It's like, you know what? I don't really want to eat that. No thanks. It's like, why? Why are you doing that? For the baby. And then, you kind of ask yourself, okay, what baby? And so finally, you take the pregnancy test, and by that point, you feel it. And for this pregnancy, I didn't think I was pregnant. I really didn't think I was pregnant. I took the pregnancy test and I was surprised when I found out I was pregnant, because I just didn't feel pregnant. I didn't feel remotely pregnant. It was like, okay, well, I know I'm not pregnant, but I'll take the pregnancy test because it's responsible and, whatever. I didn't feel anything. And that's always scary. Like, it wasn't scary with the first pregnancy because I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't as scary with the second pregnancy that failed because, with this last pregnancy that I had, it wasn't as scary with that because, I guess it was unnerving. It was a little weird and it was unsettling, but I kept on thinking, well, everything's gone normal with all the other pregnancies and it's not ectopic, so I mean, what could go wrong? We're past the little window that everybody says, the pregnancy's failing. We're past the first trimester. Everything's looking good. That's what the doctors are telling me. So, I mean, what is there to be afraid of? And unfortunately, I found the answer to that question, and it was really horrible. Really horrible. And so this pregnancy rolls around, and it's like, it just keeps looking more and more and more like the last pregnancy, and I was uneasy. And then we found out that my beloved state has passed a law that you cannot obtain an abortion unless it is a medical emergency. Now, up until that point, my husband and I had quietly been talking with each other, and we prayed to God that we never had another T18 pregnancy. But if we ever did, we knew which doctor to go to. We knew the process. We knew who could help us. We knew how to get ourselves to a hospital where they would take care of us and treat us like we were human beings, because you don't always get treated like a human being when you need an abortion. And they would be able to help us with our doomed pregnancy if it ever happened again. And I mean, if it happens to you once, it's statistically more likely to happen a second time. It's still a 1 in 100 chance, so it's not like it's a huge probability. But I mean, it was funny because it wasn't supposed to happen in the first place. I think our doctor said it was like 1 in 3,000 chance or something, and I guess we just got lucky. We hit the jackpot. Woohoo, good for us. So lightning struck once, and then the pregnancy, the abortion, wasn't supposed to result in me hemorrhaging and nearly dying, but then that happened. It's like, okay, lightning struck twice. Sometimes lightning does strike twice. Okay, whatever. And we were just waiting for lightning to strike us the third time, and everybody keeps on saying, lightning never strikes twice. It's like, it already did that. It's like, well, lightning never strikes 3 times in a row. Like, some people, there's some people in this world who just get struck by lightning a lot. Like, I can't remember exactly what it is, but some people are much more prone to repeated lightning strikes, which really sucks for them. But, that's beside the point. Anyway, up until the point that we found out about the changes in our laws, we thought we'd be able to receive appropriate medical care if one of our pregnancies went completely downhill, and then we found out about the laws. And that's when I started getting a little freaked out because the pregnancy wasn't acting good. I still hadn't had any nausea. I still wasn't having real pregnancy symptoms. My cravings had disappeared. Everything was looking increasingly unnerving with each passing week that I wasn't having pregnancy symptoms. And on top of that, they had just changed the laws around. So if this pregnancy was the way the last one was, what were we going to do? And so over the last couple weeks, unbeknownst to you guys, I've been talking to my husband about, what can we do? I'm not taking us out of state. We're not traveling. We're not going through that. We can't afford it. We can't afford to go traveling across the country to try and get an abortion across the country because all the other states around us have been putting up these stupid heartbeat bills too. And if you read the text of the bills, they always require that the person must be a resident of that state. So we can't flee our home state and go into a neighboring state and get an abortion if we need an abortion just because our state has decided that, we can't obtain an abortion if we need one. We apparently you can only get one if it's an emergency. So, I was looking at it thinking, well, the first thing that came to mind was shooting myself in the stomach. But bullets can be really damaging. And so, that's not such a good idea. The reason I was thinking of using a gun is because I don't think I have the force to drive a knife into my own stomach. But, bullets, again, I didn't want to make myself into a paraplegic just trying to end a pregnancy. So not a good way to do it. No guns, which leaves us with knives. And again, I mean, I don't know if I exactly have the arm force to do something like that. I have actually been speared in the stomach because with my last pregnancy, they had to insert a needle the size of an ice pick into my stomach right about, I'm pointing to it, but you can't see it, down yonder. And to remove some amniotic fluid, and it's surprisingly painless. They numb the local area, and then once they get the needle down into it, you get a little bit of cramping as they pierce the uterus. But other than that, it's not so bad because it's not you that's getting pierced; it's the inside of the womb. And so I was looking at it, was like, well, if I can just figure out a way to sufficiently numb the skin, which might be something I could do by just packing it with ice and just leaving the ice there until the skin is completely numb or even burning. The problem with that is, of course, hitting an artery. And so I'm talking about all this stuff to my husband, who is increasingly worried about my mental health because most people don't walk around talking about stabbing themselves in the gut. And, that's where I've been, for the last couple of weeks. Just, I don't know what to do. I need to figure out something to do. It's not that I want to do any of these crazy things. It's not that I think any of these crazy things are good solutions or rational solutions or sane solutions, but I need to have a plan. I cannot live with this level of uncertainty without some sort of a plan, even if it's a crazy plan and an irrational plan and a very bad plan. I need to have a plan. And so I was just spinning, just constantly thinking, how do I regain control in this situation? What do I do to make this not as terrible as it looks like it is becoming? And then July 5th, day after the 4th of July, so yesterday I had been having spotting on the 4th of July, and that was scary to me, but he looked at it and was like, well, my husband's been trying to be the rational one through all this, because obviously I haven't been remotely rational for the last several weeks. And he was looking, he was like, well, a lot of pregnancies have spotting. I think you might have had spotting with one of the other kids. This isn't abnormal. And he's trying to talk me down, and I was a little scared. And then yesterday I started having bleeding, like actual bleeding. And at that point, I completely lost it. I just completely lost it. I went out to the backyard so that the kids wouldn't hear me on the phone. And I tried to call my doctor's office, but it was a holiday weekend, so their office was closed. And they have an emergency number that you can call if it's an emergency. And I suppose technically bleeding while you're pregnant is an emergency, but I didn't want to talk to them because there's nothing that you can really do. Like, there's nothing they can do. The best that they can do is advise me to go into an ER. And at an ER, all they're going to do is give me an exorbitant bill and prescribe me some painkillers that I'm not going to take because I'm not in sufficient amount of pain to take the painkillers. By the way, I'm a little achy. I had a miscarriage this morning. It could be so much worse. All the very worst that happened to me physically was I got a little bit achy. Some women have really bad cramps. Me, mild achiness. I'm very lucky that way. Anyway, so there I was in the backyard, completely flipping the fuck out. And we have this little tiny Mary garden. It's a statue of Mary, and there's a few little flowers planted around it. And we've been kind of trying to slowly grow and expand it, but we don't have that huge of a budget for flowers. So we've planted a few, and then as time passes, we're hoping to get it bigger. But it looks very pleasant and quiet, and it's a nice place for prayer and reflection. It's a very pretty little area. And so I'm in the backyard, and I started weeding the Mary garden because I was hysterical, and I was crying, and I had tears rolling down my eyes so badly that my glasses dropped off my face, and I couldn't even see them. Like, I didn't even notice. I was just crying so badly. And so I'm yanking all these weeds out of this garden. The garden looks fantastic now, by the way. And I tried calling my mom, and I was talking to my mom and just kind of telling her, okay, this is what's going on. And the whole time I was thinking, this is exactly like the last pregnancy. This is everything exactly like the last one. This is all going exactly the same as the last pregnancy. We're going to do this whole thing all over again, except this time I can't even get an abortion in this state. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How could I have been so selfish to put my family into this situation? This is all my fault. I wanted to have a baby. Why did I need to have a fourth baby? I've got 3 babies. I've got 3 kids. I didn't need to have a fourth baby. This is all my fault. I just wanted one because I wanted one. And it was so fucking selfish of me to want this, because now we're here. And now
You need to check.
yes, I can do that. But yeah, that was what I was thinking. How can you be so selfish? Just all these thoughts. How are we going to afford to leave the state to get medical care? We're going to have to travel all the way across the country in order to get medical care. And we can't afford to travel all the way across the country. We cannot afford that. I am not going to put my family through that. My family does not need to pay for my stupidity and my selfishness because I wanted to do this stupid thing that we did against my husband's better judgment because I really wanted it. And this is all my fucking fault. And I was just going on and on and on. I'm weeding the stupid garden and just ripping myself a new one and just thinking, what am I going to do? 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 Like, what the hell am I going to do now? And I was absolutely inconsolable. And eventually my husband came out and told me that it was time to head back inside. That's a cat. And I came back inside, and I spent the rest of the day intermittently crying or sitting on the couch doing the 1,000-yard stare. And it was one or the other of those things for the rest of the day. My husband was kind of anxious too, a little bit stressed out because he knew what we were getting into. Like, if I said that this was going to end up like the other one, all the symptoms pointed to it ending up like the other one. He was kind of a little concerned that this was going to be like that too. And he kept on looking at the wording of the abortion bill that they passed and thinking, I don't know how the hell they're going to find a loophole in this one. Like, what the hell are we going to do? Because we're back in this nightmare again. And nighttime came, he fell asleep, kids fell asleep, and I was up until like I think 2 o'clock in the morning. I just couldn't sleep, looking up how to give birth to a stillborn baby and how to plan to give birth to a stillborn baby. They don't really tell you how to make long-term plans on how to give birth to a stillborn baby, because most people find out they're giving birth to a stillborn baby shortly before they give birth to a stillborn baby. Most people don't start planning out giving birth to a stillborn baby when they're only 8 weeks pregnant. But the way the law is written in this state, we weren't going to be able to get an abortion for our, doomed pregnancy. Like, if we don't get an abortion for pregnancy like that, we give birth to a stillborn baby. Like, there's not a lot of alternate options there. I mean, occasionally people do give birth to a live baby, but then they usually last about a week, sometimes as long as a month. It's not like, I mean, if I couldn't get an abortion for a T18 pregnancy, for a basically doomed pregnancy, the best that I could hope for was a stillborn, and failing that, I would give birth to a live child who would then struggle and fail to stay alive and die in my care. And, I already knew a little bit about hospice care, so, if we got up to the end of the pregnancy and we still hadn't given birth to a stillborn baby, then we could worry about hospice care. But, I was really hoping for a stillborn because I didn't want to take my husband out traveling to some other state. We've already had enough adventures with our first pregnancy and our first abortion. If you don't know about that, well, if you need an abortion in the United States, you're in for a rough ride. And I'm not talking about girls who had a mix up with their birth control and, oh my God, now what am I going to do? That's one way to need an abortion. Need an abortion, you think you need one and you feel like you need one, and maybe you do need one, but I don't really understand that so much. I tend to be pretty pro-life. But then there's needing an abortion in the sense that your baby is absolutely going to die, and maybe you personally have strong convictions against allowing your baby to be born just so that they can suffer until they finally pass away. And I mean, that's what hospice care is all about. You give them really, really strong drugs so that they suffer as little as possible while they're passing away. And I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do that to my baby. If you are super pro-life, you can do that to your baby. You are more than welcome. You have my blessing. I wish you the very, very best. I've talked to pro-life people who've given birth to babies like this and then had those babies subsequently die. And, this is what they believe, and I'm very, very supportive of anybody in these situations doing what they believe is best for their child and best for their family. So, if you believe that, God bless you. Good luck. I hope everything turns out the way you want it to. Please let me live according to my own convictions. I do not want to ever give birth to a baby just so that they die within roughly a week or so, maybe. That is not something I am willing to do to my own child. That is something, I understand when it happens and you don't know that it's going to happen and there's nothing you can do about it. I get that. If I have the foreknowledge and the capacity to prevent it in any way, up to and including stabbing myself in the gut, do not think that I will hesitate to take action in that direction. So, So there I was, panicking and freaking out, and and praying to God that I could have a stillborn baby instead of a live baby who suffered, because that's just all I wanted. And at about 2 in the morning, I finally fell asleep reading up on planning out giving birth to a stillborn, because I mean that is statistically the most likely thing to happen with a T18 pregnancy anyway. So I mean, at least I had that blessing. It's like, it's probably not going to be alive. They're probably not going to suffer it that much. Someone's having a really bad night. I'll be right back. Anyway, went to bed at about 2 o'clock and woke up the next morning. Today, I woke up this morning and I was having a lot of bleeding, a lot of clots, which is probably a little gross for you guys to hear. Basically, there's spotting and a little bit of bleeding, which, is not necessarily normal, but it doesn't necessarily mean the pregnancy is ended, and sometimes it is. It doesn't rule out a normal, healthy pregnancy sometimes. And then there's what I was having. And I looked and I was like, I felt so peaceful. I felt so relieved, because none of the nightmarish things that I had thought were going to happen were going to happen. So I waited until the doctor's office opened, and I was sore, I hurt, I was starting to really cramp up at that point, but I was also relaxed and happy. I'd scheduled a play date for my daughter. I called up the other mom and I canceled and apologized, and I went into my daughter and I told her, I'm so sorry, we can't have our play date today. Would you like ice cream for breakfast? I went out and I got a bunch of ice cream and I got a bunch of really colorful sprinkles, and I gave each of the kids a little bowl of ice cream with sprinkles all over it for breakfast. And my baby died. I understand that's a horrible thing to be happy and relieved about, but I've seen what happens when you have a threatened miscarriage, where it's like you start bleeding and you think, oh God, this is it, and it's not actually a miscarriage, and your baby's still alive, and it's like, oh, the baby made it, that's awesome. And sometimes that happens and the baby's fine, and sometimes that happens and the baby isn't fine. And I've seen what happens when it happens and the baby isn't fine. And it's like, oh, we didn't have a miscarriage. That's so wonderful. The baby's still alive. The baby's okay. Isn't this wonderful? And then, months down the road, all of a sudden it's like, oh, something's gone horribly wrong. And you know how you spent the last 8 weeks or so thinking that you were going to have a baby and everything was going to be great? Well, you aren't going to have a baby, and everything is really not great right now. I know what that's like, and I just know the way I felt about this pregnancy. It wasn't that I didn't love the baby. I love all my babies. The ones that get born, the ones that don't get born, I love them all, but this just scared me because it felt so unhealthy. And it was like, oh God, this one's not going to live. This one's not going to live. And what kind of hell am I going to have to go through dealing with our culture and our laws and other people's prejudices and all the hang-ups that the world around me has with situations like mine, because nobody ever thinks that stuff like this ever happens. What am I going to do to navigate all of that? What am I going to have to go through in order to get through all of that just to take care of my family? What kind of hell is this baby going to put me through? And it turns out she didn't put me through any kind of hell. She just died very quietly on her own. I am incredibly grateful. So anyway, that's the last update I've got on this pregnancy. I think we might actually be reckless and stupid enough to try again. But we have been discussing maybe not trying again until the laws get settled out, because everybody's so thrilled about this whole Supreme Court thing. Like, oh, we get to challenge the Supreme Court. Our names are going to go down in history books or some shit. they don't really care what happens to people who are just trying to live their lives in the middle of all this. They don't care about the people who get caught up in this. They care about winning. They definitely don't care about the people they're ruling over. And I'm one of those people, and I'm definitely going to be affected by other people whom I'm never going to meet having stupid power plays, because that's what it is to me. Your precious Supreme Court battle is nothing but a stupid, selfish power grab. You know, we're saving lives. Yeah, you're saving lives, but what do you do when the baby's going to die no matter what? You know, you couldn't have included a small paragraph, or even just a pair of little tiny sentences, any kind of little addendum into your law, anything for people like me. You know, it's not like we're asking everybody else to bend their lives around us. We're just asking permission to live, you know, just to live without horrific, inhumane levels of suffering. Like I don't know if anybody else is comfortable with the idea of carrying what is essentially a dead baby for an entire pregnancy, but some of us might find that to be a little bit inhumane. And no exceptions for people like me, I guess. So we're not sure that we want to try again until all this shit is over. But, you know, I've only got so many years left in that hourglass, so, you know, we might risk it. We might be just stupid enough to risk it, because I don't know, I can always stab myself in the stomach or something and make a political point. I won't do that. I'm not that strong. I know what I'm capable of, and I also know what I'm not quite capable of, and I don't think I quite have the force to do it. I have considered maybe alternative things that I could use, something to generate the force for me to plunge it deep enough to actually make an impact, because I'm not gonna go into an ER with a knife this deep into my stomach going, I stabbed myself in the stomach. You know, I'm gonna, if I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna think it out a lot, and then when I do it, I will succeed. So I'm probably not gonna do the knife thing. I'll probably think of something a little less dramatic and a little bit less splashy and colorful. You know, if you put your body under enough physical strain, sometimes you just lose it. So how do I generate a massive amount of physical strain for my body that I'm going to be likely to recover from? And this is where my mind goes. This is just what I think about. And I'm really hoping that maybe I'll get pregnant and it just feel normal again, like a normal pregnancy with normal symptoms. And just, you know, I kept on wishing that for this one I could just find myself puking my guts out in the toilet again, and grumbling about how even the ginger doesn't make me feel any better. And that would be so wonderful if that happens. If it ever happens again, that would be wonderful. I'm probably going to be doing a video about the laws that they've changed in our state and how those laws affect people like me, because nobody gives a shit. But if nobody ever says anything, then no one's ever going to know. And so, yeah, I'll talk about it. Might as well. I know a lot of people are going to say, I'm sorry that your baby died, because that's just what people say. And a lot of people have already said it. You know, when I found out I was pregnant, everyone was saying congratulations, and I didn't feel like I should be congratulated. It just seemed like everything was wrong, and it seemed premature to be happy about that. And now everybody tells me they're sorry, and really I just want to stress to you guys that I'm so relieved and I'm so grateful that everything turned out this way. And you know, it just could have gone so much worse, and it didn't. And I'm just really grateful, you know. And that's probably probably not something a lot of people are going to be able to understand. Hopefully this video has made it a little bit more easy to understand why I'm grateful instead of sad. I would have loved to have met that little girl, but, you know, I don't think she was meant to be, and I think the fact that she didn't get born is just proof of that. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll talk to you guys later.